Guys, thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to be talking to you today about why companies should look at relocating to Wyoming. If you can tell by the accent, I'm going to be talking about this from a very international perspective about why Wyoming is definitely a look point for a lot of international firms. Let me kick off by talking about me. I am the founder and CEO of a very new startup called Fortune Wallet. If you're interested, Google it. We've got some cool patented technology about how you can interact and send crypto between two different parties. We've literally just come out of stealth startup mode. We've just gone into our first financing round. Very cool stuff happening there. As was pointed out, I'm also a lawyer. There seems to be a hell of a lot of them here today. Founded Gresham International. I'm the managing associate over there. And I work with a lot of international crypto companies across the globe. I wrote a book, The Little Book of Crypto. For those of you that are bored and need some terrible bedtime reading, I highly recommend it. I contribute for pretty much every major publication in the industry. I do some government advisory work. I still currently work with the government of Dubai. I also worked with the government of Estonia and the governments in the UK, it's the Bank of England, the Treasury, the FCA. Board member of the British Blockchain Association and the Gift Group of Singapore. One of the things I point out to everybody is that I am a genuine lover of this industry. I'm a believer in it, everything it represents, and the people that it brings together. A little bit of housekeeping, as with every speech. Look, nothing in this presentation is obviously financial or legal advice. Questions are welcome, depending on time, but please save them for the end. And I always draw the difference between passion and professionalism. Guys, I'm a former Air Force officer. Sometimes I might slip words into sentences I shouldn't, and I'm trying to be professional, so I apologize if that comes out. And we are talking about crypto. A lot of folks will talk about blockchain, crypto. I explain to people when I'm talking about crypto. We talk about that as a diverse technology set, different technologies interacting together. Blockchain for me is something different. Hat switching is a term that my father used to use. You have to put different hats on for different situations. 99.9% of my time, I am a lawyer. I wear a lawyer hat. In business, 1% of the time, I run Fortune Wallet. And I'm going to talk to you today from that perspective because I think having a founder's perspective is a little bit more healthy, especially here at BizCon. So super quick pitch about Fortune Wallet. Wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't talk about it. We literally built a brand new wallet that uses patented technology that lets people send crypto to one another in the easiest way I've ever seen. It's a username that literally amends based on the chain that you're using, so you will never send crypto to the wrong person, to the wrong chain, or with the wrong amount. Like I say, go check it out. It doesn't use gimmicky things like a domain name or anything like that. It's something completely new. But let's focus on what we are going to talk about today. What do crypto companies really want? Having worked with a lot of them, I can safely say they genuinely want a regulatory framework where they don't have to look over their shoulder. That's the key point I use, don't look over their shoulder. We're not talking about an invasive, intrusive regulatory framework where they always have to maintain themselves. I draw distinctions between brokers. I draw distinctions between foreign exchange firms. When we look at those types of companies, lots of annual reportings, lots of things that have to be done on an annual basis. I don't believe, given what crypto represents, the ease of access, the decentralized nature of a lot of it, that companies are really looking for a solid regulatory framework that offers them anything other than an opportunity to say, look, I'm not a bad guy, and I don't want to keep looking over my shoulder for the next 20 years. They do want the ability to stand out from other competitors. We've been in this industry for a long time now, guys, and a lot of companies are actually looking for ways to differentiate themselves. Maybe their technology set isn't that different. Maybe the things they do aren't that different. And so they're looking for ways to really define themselves. Regulation, where they're based, their reporting requirements, their taxation elements, all of those things give them a differential. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Final thing they look for is they're looking for a legislature that actually appreciates the new technology set. So many times we've seen people enter marketplaces and they'll say, look, well, we're actually really pleased about this. We're a multi-million-dollar company and nobody wants to work with us. Nobody's interested in hearing our ideas, how we can amend things, how we can work with regulators and so on. So what ends up happening? Well, the search. There are a lot of questions that are asked by people. And the number one question that I hear all the time from everybody, even today, even at events I was speaking at last week, is, where should I set up my company? Where should we be based? Where should we be doing business? And I always have to explain to people there is no magic glove. There is no one size fits all solution. I'm going to be talking about Wyoming today because it's pretty damn good, but I do want to stress there is no one size fits all solution. Everybody has to look at their project. Everybody has to look at everything from shareholders to dividends to payments to structures to taxation to management, everything. All of those considerations need to be put into place. And when you do due diligence, like we did with Fortune Wallet, you really have to start looking at a huge number of different locations. And so the reason I wanted to talk about Wyoming is because the exposure that I've seen as a lawyer, that hat, and the exposure that I've seen as a founder, that hat, has led me to the same place time after time. Now, pause for thought here. If crypto is truly international, why should we be focusing on one location? Why shouldn't we equally be international firms? Well, my answer to that is yes, companies should be international. Crypto gives people awesome, amazing freedom. It gives people the ability to do things we only thought about doing 25 years ago. It's awesome. But what it really means is that we need some flexibility. I'm going to keep looking at the screen, by the way, guys. I have a Zoom box on my thing, which is taking up half my screen. So basically, the international community should be open, and it should be able for us to look at things internationally, including having companies work. But we do need to strike a balance. I always explain that the US is a very different market to the rest of the world. That is the reality. I also explain that there has to be a great balance between protections and freedoms. The reality is you can't create a completely free company without any freedoms. 89% of companies do genuinely want some kind of licensing or some kind of legitimate focal point to be based from. There was a study undertaken by Crypto Daily in 2019. I imagine that's probably changed. I would think that number's probably gone up by now. Companies that are looking for somewhere to call home, but companies that are looking for some kind of infrastructure that can really benefit them. So the reality of it is, why don't companies look at one place, or why don't regulators want to work together? And why is there this real difficult nature in finding somewhere where you should be based? Let me put it this way. Why does everybody ask the question about where should we be domiciled? It should be pretty easy, right? After years in this industry, we should be able to say, maybe here, maybe there, maybe here. But it doesn't work like that, because in this industry, we've got what we call the fact versus fiction paradigm. And the reality of it is that licenses that have been promised by regulators didn't happen, or they haven't been what they set out to achieve. Right here, I draw Malta as a great example. For those of you who were familiar with the Maltese license framework, they were one of the first in Europe after Estonia. They were going to license companies. They were going to give everybody a home to be in. Binance moved their corporate headquarters there. For those of you who know how many licenses, in fact, let me ask a question. Who knows how many licenses have been issued in Malta today? None. And believe me, I've helped companies relocate out of Malta after they've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to get a license. It's shocking. I look at the new FCA license that's been brought in the UK. I helped the FCA draft the guidance on companies getting regulated in the United Kingdom. And in that, we looked at the spirit, we looked at the mechanism, we looked at the way that companies should interact together. And now we're going through a really problematic situation where the FCA is encouraging companies to withdraw their applications because they don't meet the criteria. Even though I stress there is no criteria as to what constitutes a company. I've had meetings with the FCA where they physically said, we don't believe this application is in the spirit of the FCA. What the hell does that even mean? The reality is that a lot of these regulators don't understand what they've got in front of them, and the matrix and the frameworks that they've built really don't work for what they're trying to build. Then, of course, we have the tax situation. Before we even go down a regulatory route, we can talk about tax. We know, whatever people's view of taxes are, that every startup has to consider their break-even point, return on investment, return on interest, and the biggest factor in that is tax. Taxation cripples. A lot of these jurisdictions have very, very, very high profile taxation requirements. And now with new things like the universal basic tax coming down the line, it's probably only going to get more difficult for companies. The reality is that the flexibility is not there. We are in one of the most flexible industries that is able to diversify very quickly in its technology set. We weren't talking about NFTs in any real measure 5 years ago, 4 years ago. It's the only thing people are talking about now. We've been through DeFi, we've been through mining, we go through NFTs. This is only going to keep growing, and we cannot expect regulators to keep up. The flexibility just isn't there. And on top of that, the cost is insane. Average client in Malta spent between $100,000 and $200,000 for a license that they never got. And as a startup, that can be death. So why Wyoming? I want to point out, I did this on the flight yesterday over, and that seemed much more funnier when I was on the plane, I'll be honest. Really, look, let's take a look at this from a founder's perspective, okay? There's so many great lawyers here today, so many great Wyoming lawyers out there, so many great US lawyers out there that will help you with that. But let's look at it from a founder's perspective. Wyoming is a great choice. It is flexible and it has a logical legislature. Let's be honest, it's kind of kick-ass, right? When we look at what other states are doing, when we look at what other countries are doing, they really have a consultative approach. You only have to look at the conversations that were had yesterday in the committee to understand just how different they are from other locations. A flexible, logical corporate structure system. If you'd have asked any divorce attorney 10 years ago where you should put your assets, they'd have said Wyoming. Now it's a very different story. The corporate structure here in Wyoming is outstanding. The flexibility, the ease of structure, the ease of maintenance, and the options that you have surpass, for me, every other state in the country. It's an easy to use taxation system. I briefly spoke about taxation a moment ago. The taxation system here is fantastic for companies working in Wyoming and companies that maybe are just domiciled in Wyoming. There is obviously a difference there. The DAO, I mean, hey, how amazing is that, right? Companies are jumping at it. It's the first place ever that's invented an actual legal entity that people can reference as a DAO and operate as a DAO. It's reputable. On the international market, regardless of what people think or feel politically, the United States will always have a fantastic reputation. And whenever an address on the United States is on a business card, it always carries reputation with it. It does have access to international markets. Again, as a guy that does a lot of work internationally, when you look at Dubai, when you look at other places, it is hard. Simple things like banking, just trying to get money from one location to another. It's incredibly difficult. I know in the crypto world, we might not worry about that so much, but in reality, we have to do some things in fiat finance, and we have to deal with licensing matrix, taxation, annual returns, reports. All of that is easy here, but it means that we have access to international markets. Again, just to touch base on that, when you show a Wyoming entity, you can show ownership very easily, very effectively, and that helps you on an international market. And of course, best for last, the custody and banking laws that they have created for the crypto industry are outstanding. The stuff that you can do here as a crypto company far surpasses a lot of other places in the world. Final thing, let's be honest, Wyoming is a hell of a place, right? It's awesome. Every time I come here, I feel welcome. Anytime anybody I know that's ever come here feels welcome. It is a great place to be. Final point, and I was thinking about this, I haven't said anything about the federal government. I get it. There are federal taxes on top. There is federal legislation. Help versus hindrance. I will let you choose your own feeling on how the federal government chooses to operate, but we'll see what happens there. Guys, you can find out more about anything I've spoken about. Check me out. Add me on any social media, Twitter, Telegram, at Mr. Calavans. Check out Fortune Wallet, fortunewallet.io. Thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure talking to you.